I thought I was just missing another Sunday dinner. Instead, I found my entire life being torn apart in a live stream by my own mother. She had no idea the camera was rolling, or that her words would reach me hundreds of miles away. That night, everything changed. And this time, I wasn't staying silent. My name is Sinead Sullivan, and I am 32 years old. Last Sunday night, while sipping coffee alone in my hotel room after a real estate conference, I opened a live stream that shattered everything I thought I knew. My cousin Jenna had sent the link with a short message. "You need to see this." I'm so sorry. Curious and slightly nervous, I tapped play. There was my mother, sitting at our family dining table, swirling a glass of wine and laughing with my aunts and uncles. I expected the usual family gossip, maybe a few sarcastic remarks. But nothing could have prepared me for what came next. "She thinks selling houses makes her important," my mom scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Please. She couldn't handle nursing school. Now she bounces from open house to open house like some desperate failure." I felt my breath catch. "I mean," she continued, "we all remember that meltdown when she dropped out. Came home crying about how hard it was. Pathetic. And now she thinks she's some kind of professional just because she puts on heels and signs contracts." Every word landed like a punch to the stomach. I'd paused nursing school 5 years ago to take care of her after her diagnosis with rheumatoid arthritis. I covered her medical bills. I drove her to physical therapy. I handled her insurance paperwork and never once asked for anything in return. And now the woman I'd sacrificed everything for was mocking me in front of the entire family. Jenna had filmed the dinner discreetly, probably planning to post her usual slice of family life content. She hadn't realized what she was capturing until it was too late. The camera caught the exact moment my mother laughed and lifted her wine glass, saying, "Some people just aren't cut out for real achievement." I watched the video 3 times. I wanted to believe I had misheard her, that I was imagining the cruelty, but it was all there. Unfiltered. Unforgivable. My eyes blurred with tears, but my hand stayed steady as I texted Jenna back. "Leave it up. I need to show you something when I get back." I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the ceiling, remembering every appointment I had driven her to, every medication I had paid for, and every plan I had pushed aside so she could have what she needed. In that moment, something inside me broke, and something else began to wake up. The next morning, I checked out of my hotel earlier than planned and started the 2-hour drive back to Boston. The road blurred past me as my mind played back every scene from that video. Her voice. Her laughter. The ease with which she had erased everything I had done for her. I had never told my mother I was cutting the trip short. She still believed I was in Providence, shaking hands and handing out business cards at networking panels. She had no idea I was coming home with a folder full of receipts and 5 years of silence, ready to be broken. I parked outside the house but didn't go in. Instead, I drove to Maple Avenue, where Jenna waited at a coffee shop, nervous and fidgeting, her bright blue headphones slung around her neck. "I'm so sorry," she blurted before I could even sit down. "I had no idea she'd say those things. I didn't mean for you to see it like that." I placed a thick folder on the table between us. "You don't have to apologize. If anything, I should thank you." Jenna blinked, confused. "Thank me?" I opened the folder slowly. Inside were years of carefully labeled documents, payment records, doctor referrals, insurance claims, bank transfers, prescriptions. Every dollar, every appointment, every sacrifice I had made for my mother's health, all there in black and white. "I've spent over $100,000 taking care of her," I said softly. "I paused my education. I lost friends. I ended relationships. I worked 7 days a week so she would never go without." Jenna stared at the papers, her mouth slightly open. "And she calls you a failure?" I gave a short, bitter laugh. "That's the part that hurts the most. I thought maybe deep down she respected me. That behind all the criticism, there was some small part of her that was proud of me. But now I know. She doesn't see me at all." "What are you going to do?" Jenna asked. I looked her in the eye, feeling the weight in my chest slowly begin to lift. "I'm going to walk away. I've already started moving all financial responsibilities off my name. I'm not her safety net anymore." A moment of silence passed before Jenna reached across the table and gave my hand a gentle squeeze. "You deserve better," she whispered. For the first time in years, I believed it. The next day, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in months. With my morning coffee in hand, I sat at the dining table that had once been filled with prescriptions, insurance paperwork, and stress. Now it held only my laptop, a notepad, and a pen. It was time to take action, not just emotionally but legally and financially. I opened my banking app and began the process of removing myself as guarantor from my mother's accounts. The representative on the phone sounded confused at first. "You want to end all financial responsibility for Patricia Sullivan?" she asked. "Yes," I replied. "Effective immediately." There was a long pause. "You do understand this may affect her insurance coverage?" "I do," I said calmly. "Please send her the revised premium details by mail. She needs to know what her plan looks like without my support." I had already anticipated the fallout. I had already written the emails. That afternoon, I sent a single message to every member of our extended family. It was simple, factual, and attached with proof. For the past 5 years, I have solely managed and funded my mother's medical care, totaling over $100,000. This included premiums, treatments, transportation, and day-to-day needs. I am no longer able or willing to continue in this role. She may need assistance from others moving forward. I hope you understand this was not a decision made lightly. I attached a breakdown of every payment I had made. No opinion. No emotional appeals. Just facts. Within an hour, the replies started pouring in. Aunt Marin was outraged. "How could you abandon your own mother?" Uncle James accused me of selfishness. "Everyone struggles sometimes. This is when family pulls together." But then came a quiet message from Aunt Bridget, my father's older sister. "You did more than anyone ever asked. You do not owe anyone your entire life. Call me if you need anything." I sat with that message for a long time. That evening, I blocked my mother's number. Then, one by one, I muted the relatives who refused to ask for my side. The silence that followed was not empty. It was peaceful. The following morning, I walked into the admissions office at Boston City Nursing School and handed over my reinstatement documents. The advisor looked through my file and smiled. "Your record is impressive," she said. "We'd love to have you back." As I walked across campus after the meeting, I felt a deep sense of belonging. I was no longer orbiting around someone else's needs. I was finally back in my own life. The transition back into student life was not seamless, but it was deeply rewarding. I found myself balancing real estate work with accelerated nursing classes, managing showings between lectures, and reviewing anatomy diagrams during open house weekends. It was hectic, exhausting, and absolutely thrilling. For the first time in years, I was moving toward a future that was entirely mine. My real estate business had to shift. I reduced my client load and focused on fewer higher-value properties. I hired a part-time assistant named Kylie, a bright and efficient junior from a local college, to help with admin work and keep things running while I was in class. At first, I worried I was giving up too much income, but without the constant financial drain of my mother's expenses, I found I had more than enough. More than enough money. More than enough time. More than enough space to breathe. The peace didn't last forever. One Thursday afternoon, while showing a townhouse in Brookline, I spotted 2 familiar figures waiting near the parking lot. My mother stood beside Aunt Marin's car, leaning heavily on her cane. Her face was carefully made up, her posture weary and strategic. Aunt Marin looked annoyed, probably dragged along for emotional reinforcement. I took a breath and walked toward them. "Said," my mother said, using the voice she always saved for public confrontations. "We need to talk." "Talk here," I replied calmly. "What's going on?" Her voice trembled. "I can't get my medication. The pharmacy said my insurance is no longer valid. I'm in pain." I nodded. "Yes, that makes sense. You'll be receiving a letter explaining everything. You can't just walk away like this," she snapped. "After everything I've done for you." I didn't flinch. "You mean everything I've done for you? 5 years. $120,000. Every appointment, every refill, every night I stayed up fighting insurance reps. And what do I get in return?" Her eyes narrowed. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said, my voice steady. "I'm being honest." She looked to Aunt Marin for backup, but Marin said nothing. The silence said everything. I'm not your nurse, your wallet, or your punching bag, I added. You'll figure things out. You always do. Without another word, I turned and walked away. That night, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea and watched the city lights shimmer. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I was simply done. I had spent years trying to prove my worth to someone who had already made up her mind. Now I was finally learning to value myself. A few weeks later, the annual Boston Real Estate Association Awards ceremony arrived. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to attend, not as an obligation but as a celebration. My broker had nominated me for the Resilience in Real Estate Award, and although I didn't expect to win, I was proud to simply be recognized. I wore a navy dress that felt both strong and elegant, a color that made me feel grounded. I entered the hotel ballroom with a sense of quiet confidence. This was my world too, and I had earned my place in it. The evening unfolded with small talk, clinking glasses, and warm congratulations. When my name was called, I was genuinely stunned. Said Sullivan, please join us on stage. Applause thundered through the room as I made my way to the podium. The crystal award in my hand felt heavy, real, and entirely mine. Thank you, I said, pausing to gather my breath. This award means more to me than I can express. The past few years have been challenging. I stepped away from a different dream to help someone I love, and I rebuilt a new path when the old one closed. I glanced out at the crowd. Resilience is not just about surviving hardship. It is about making difficult choices, finding your voice, and reclaiming your direction. That is what real estate taught me. That is what life taught me. And I'm proud to say I am now pursuing my original dream again, nursing, while continuing to serve my clients in this incredible industry. The applause that followed was warm, affirming, and deeply healing. Later that night, I returned home and placed the award next to my nursing textbooks. It belonged there, a symbol of both my past and my future. I made tea and sat by the window, the city lights glowing beyond the glass. My phone buzzed quietly beside me. A message from Jenna. Your mom saw the ceremony live stream. She didn't say anything, just stared at the screen. I stared at the message, feeling nothing but peace. She had spent years trying to diminish me, but now the entire city had seen what I had become. Not despite her absence, but because of it. The following morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through my apartment windows and a quiet sense of calm I had not known in years. No crisis waited for me. No early phone call demanding I rearrange my day. The stillness was not empty, it was earned. I checked my calendar and smiled. I had 2 showings in the afternoon and a nursing class review session later in the evening. My new life was full, not because I had to juggle a dozen obligations to survive, but because I had finally chosen the right ones for myself. Mid-morning, I received a call from Boston Medical Journal. They wanted to feature me in an upcoming article about career changers entering healthcare. The reporter had seen the real estate award announcement and was intrigued by the transition. I agreed to the interview, hoping it might inspire someone else to believe that second chances are possible. Later that week, the article went live. A photo of me in scrubs, standing in front of a chalkboard covered in anatomy diagrams, accompanied the headline. From closing deals to opening hearts, one woman's journey from real estate to nursing. The story highlighted both of my careers, but more importantly, it honored the turning point, when I chose myself. The feedback was overwhelming. Colleagues, former classmates, even strangers messaged me with congratulations, encouragement, and stories of their own struggles with difficult families or lost dreams. I hadn't realized how many people felt unseen or undervalued until my story gave them permission to speak. Then came the message I had not expected. It was from Uncle Patrick. He had read the article. So had my mother. She said nothing at first, the message read. But I could see her face. Something in her changed. I think maybe she understands now. I didn't reply immediately. Not because I was angry, but because I was thinking. Did I want her to understand? Did I need her to? I stood up, walked to my bookshelf, and ran a hand across the stack of patient care manuals and property binders side by side. I had built something whole from the pieces of my fractured past. And for the first time, I realized that her recognition was no longer required. A few weeks later, I received an unexpected envelope in the mail. The handwriting on the front was familiar. It was my mother's. For a moment, I simply stared at it, unsure whether to open it or toss it aside. The weight of that decision felt heavier than the envelope itself. Eventually I opened it. Inside was a short handwritten note. The first line read, "I saw the article."
No greeting, no preamble.
Just that. She continued, "You always wanted to help people. I was too caught up in my own pain to see it. I said things I can't take back. Maybe you don't care what I think anymore, but I am proud of you." There was no apology, no direct acknowledgement of the damage, but it was the closest thing to vulnerability I had ever received from her. And surprisingly, I did not feel angry. I folded the letter and placed it in the back of my nursing textbook, between chapters on trauma care and healing. Later that night, Jenna called. "You good?" she asked without saying hello. "Better than good," I said honestly. "I saw that article's been shared like 1,000 times," she continued. "Even my AP history teacher mentioned it in class. You're kind of a big deal." I laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in years. "I don't need to be a big deal. I just need to feel like I'm finally living my own story." "And do you?" she asked. I looked around my quiet apartment at the textbooks, the real estate files, the framed award, and the blank notebook on my desk waiting for new goals. "I do," I said softly. "For the first time, I really do." Jenna hesitated before speaking again. "You know, even if she never fully apologizes, even if she never says the exact words you want to hear, you already won." I let that sink in. She was right. Winning wasn't about revenge or vindication. It was about choosing peace. It was about building something lasting out of the pieces that others tried to shatter. And as I closed my eyes that night, I felt it settle into my bones. Freedom. 3 months later, I stood in the hospital's teaching wing, wearing my crisp white scrubs. The morning sunlight filtered through the windows as I carefully prepared in 4 drip. My instructor gave a quiet nod of approval from across the room. I didn't need validation anymore, but in that moment it still meant something. My phone buzzed during break. It was an email from the Boston Real Estate Association. A colleague had nominated me again, this time for Entrepreneur of the Year. I smiled, not because of the nomination, but because I finally understood I didn't have to choose between parts of myself. I could be both, the nurse and the businesswoman, the daughter who cared and the woman who had learned when to say no. That weekend, I hosted a small dinner at my apartment. Jenna came early to help set the table. Kylie brought dessert. Even Aunt Bridget sent flowers with a handwritten card that simply read, "To peace and power. You found both." At the end of the evening, as everyone said their goodbyes and the apartment quieted down, I poured myself a glass of tea and stepped out onto the balcony. The city stretched before me, bright, alive, unpredictable. My life had become like that too. I reached for the envelope my mother had sent weeks ago, now worn at the corners. I unfolded it one last time, reread the few sentences, and then gently I let the paper go. The wind carried it upward, then away. I didn't need to hold on anymore. I had already let go. Inside, my textbooks waited. A new semester. A new chapter. My story wasn't about bitterness or blame. It was about rising. And I wasn't just writing it anymore, I was living it. The end.